listeners, welcome to TALRadio powered by Touch a Life Foundation. Today we have with us Harris Kaplan, a Canadian entrepreneur turned philanthropist dedicated to spreading the transformative power of Vedic sound for world peace through Maharishi Veda app and Rudrabhisheka Yajna. From TALRadio, we extend a warm welcome to Harris Kaplan, sir. It is a delight to have you here today to talk about Vedas, to talk about human well-being, and to talk about global peace.
Thank you very much. It's a delight to be connected with you and to see somebody and a group who's working in the best way they can to make individuals in the world a better place. Thanks so much for having me.
I think what aligns with Touch Life Foundation and also the Transcendental Meditation team is that we are both working towards having spreading a lot of positivity, spreading a lot of peace throughout the world, and that is where we align, and that's why we want our listeners to hear your voice as well. And so I would like to start by asking, how did your journey start? How you were a successful business person, and then you ventured into philanthropy, and then now you're spreading the word of Vedas. How did you end up being here, spreading the words of Veda, working with Indian Pundits? Because I find it to be a very beautiful journey.
Thank you. It's an amazing journey. I think all of our lives, when we look back and trying to figure out how did we get from there to here, and we see how much serendipity there is in that, what seemed to us that we weren't planning at all. I'm not sure what happens, whether it's just good fortune or whether some other force or kindness is planning things. In the case of myself, I was someone who always was interested when I was very young, probably like so many of your listeners, I'm sure, in that inner quality of life. There was something there that I just felt was there, but I wasn't quite sure how to access it. So how do you do that? So I went to university and I studied philosophy. Absolutely useless, by the way, later for a business career, and in many ways useless in itself. But it was great. I had a fellowship, a graduate fellowship in philosophy, and I took some time off to travel around the world. I wanted to see different things, and I was in France one day, and I was feeling like I'm not really accomplishing what I wanted to accomplish. I was just by myself, and I was in this quiet little pension. And I was going to have dinner at one of those great French restaurants that night, even with a poor student I could afford in those days. And I said, let me try and meditate. And I had read so many books about meditation and people's experience. And so I tried to meditate, and I didn't know what to do. And it was fantastic. I had this incredible experience of tremendous, deep, deep silence, no thoughts, just pure consciousness. I said, wow, this is fantastic. I'm going to do this every day. Well, I tried to do it every day after that. I got headaches or nothing happened. And I felt like, what's going on? It's like a waste of time. And I was confused. When I came back from my travels, I had two very dear friends. I went to see them. And I thought they'd be so wildly excited to see me. I'd been away for almost a year. They must be missing me, my dear friends. And they said, I knocked on their door and they said, just go sit down in the other room, read a book or something. We're meditating. And so I said, really? That's your greeting of me after all this time? And they said, we're doing this transcendental meditation. And so I couldn't believe the changes in them, that they had become so much more clear and sharp and energetic, and I would say positive. So naturally and one of my friends was a good chess player. I used to beat him. He started to beat me in chess, which was disastrous. I thought, I better learn this too. So I learned to meditate. And then the experience gradually continued, those deep, profound inner experiences. But on the practical level, and I'm a practical person. I think most of us end up being practical people. What I really appreciated was the changes outside of meditation in my life. And so I think, what happens is, you were saying, what is it that caused me to make this change? After some time, you feel like when you've had these tremendous benefits, you naturally feel to share something good with people. Everyone loves to share. Yes. Even a little child comes home from school in kindergarten, they learn ABC, then they want to tell their younger brother or sister ABC. So like that, I actually became a teacher of TM, of transcendental meditation, but then I had to support my family. Mm-hmm. And I was very fortunate. You said that, how did it happen? I don't know how a philosophy graduate and teacher of meditation runs a large investment fund. Um, but it worked out. And then I decided when I was just turning 50, why not spend my time doing this? If I have enough money to retire, maybe not at the level that you see some wealth these days, but enough for my practical little family, why not have the great joy and delight of putting one's attention on what you enjoy the most? Because I think we all find what we put our attention on grows in our life. And I felt if I continued just to put attention on finances, great, I could do that. There's such a, the richness of inner life was the basis for what I wanted to do. And so around at the end of 1999, I decided I would again spend my time doing this. And that's kind of how I ended up in this situation.
And what a beautiful journey. And I see that transcendental meditation has been a part of your life, I believe, from your 20s. And it continues to be a big part of your life even now. And you have been actively contributing towards cause and towards spreading peace and getting more people to be in touch with their consciousness.
I would say about that the very best thing about my experience of meditation, my journey of meditation, is how the sweetness of that experience grows. And if it's okay, I wasn't thinking I would say this, but I would kind of give you some sense of what I mean by that. I think that most of us are familiar with our normal three states of consciousness, of sleeping state, no awareness, just dullness, nothing, dreaming state, phantasmic, but no kind of ability to focus, and waking state. And then it turns out when one studies transcendental meditation, it turns out that it's the transcendental experience is a fourth major state of consciousness, because one's very alert, even more alert, I would say, than when in waking state, but the body is more rested than deep sleep. So that combination of heightened alertness, unbounded awareness, if you like, and at the same time restfulness starts to maintain itself in activity. And so naturally what happens is that sweetness of life, that flow of life, that sense of that inner fulfillment starts to be more and more dynamic or lived in outer activity. Of course, some people more or less naturally have that anyway in their life. And I'm sure many of your listeners are have that as a natural daily experience, that great feeling of the flow of life, the flow of love, the appreciation of all the incredibleness that there is in our world. In my case, and in most cases, I think everybody's case, meditating, it's that quality grows and grows. And so you asked if I'm continuing to meditate this 52 years later. And I was thinking this morning, I was meditating this morning, and I thought I'm the luckiest person in the world. Because my friends nagged me, I learned to do this and hear that kind of inner glow, that inner experience of life, which everybody has. It's their birthright of everybody, has come up more and more. So that's a long answer, sorry, to a short question.
No, please. I had a wonderful time knowing about your journey and knowing how crucial it has been to, to find that, to anchor yourself to
Right.
meditation and to navigate through life using that as an anchor.
Right.
And that is something I believe would resonate with a lot of listeners as well, because taking the time for yourself to understand and be in touch with your inner self before you go out and do things makes you a very sound human being, a person who's there to do good for the others, and you're also grounded. And it's a beautiful thing for people to know and also try to be, especially in this world which is filled with so much of distractions. To be anchored within yourself and to be conscious and be in touch with yourself is a great accomplishment.
Beautifully said. I was thinking also that this morning because there's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita, this fantastic story of the changes of life, of what to do in life. What the whole story of the Gita is, how should I live my life? It begins with a question: what dharma is? What should I do? How should I act? How should I behave? And there's an incredible verse in the second chapter where Lord Krishna, who is the exponent of that eternal value of life, is presented in that way, is speaking to someone having a question. And he's wondering what he should do because it's so complicated how he has to decide between two forces of life. And the answer he's given is what you said. The answer is in the Sanskrit is yogastha kuru karmani. Established first in yourself, established in yoga. Yoga means union, union with that inner value. Then go out and do activity. Because if you try and go at activity and you're grumpy and you're tired, what does it do? If you're crying and you want to help someone who's crying, how does it help someone who's crying? But it's only just what you said, anchoring in that self, anchoring in the language of the Veda, Atma, or the self. Then what happens is naturally one radiates that, and not just helps other people, but one enjoys one's own life so much more.
It's so interesting how Bhagavad Gita has such a quote, while modern psychology is also saying the same thing about anchoring to within yourself before you go out and talk to other people, and to be in touch with your inner self before you think of conducting yourself in a certain way. And it does bring a sense of pride to know that it has been a part of our culture for such a long time. And from here, I would like to know a bit more about your journey in regarding the Vedas, the Vedic sound. How did you learn about the Vedas, and how did you start doing the Rudrabhisheka Yagna along with the Indian Pundits for the global peace?
If I could, I'd like to then start by talking about what Veda is, how I understand Veda. And as I mentioned earlier, I studied philosophy in university, and I had a snobbish attitude about things. I had read this and I had read that. And these friends who had asked me to, or told me that I should meditate, they said I should really read Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's translation and commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. Now, I had read the Bhagavad Gita and I liked it very much. And I thought, oh, come on. I really need to do that? So my friend lent me his copy of the Gita. And I went through it. I went to start it with that kind of grumpy attitude, to tell you the truth. I just was like, okay, fine. And I came to the preface of the Gita, the first sentence. I have it here. Because I was thinking of this today again. And the very first part of the preface, it says, what is the Vedas? The Vedas are the lighthouse of eternal wisdom, leading man to fulfillment and inspiring him to supreme accomplishment. And now this is the sentence which it really explains the Veda. And this is the one that knocked me out because its precision, its clarity, I thought was just so profound, so deeply moving. And this is what Maharishi describes as Veda. The omnipresence of eternal being, unmanifested and absolute. Its status is that, even in the manifested diversity of creation, and the possibility of the realization of being, of Atma, of the self, by anyone in terms of themselves, these are the great truths of the perennial philosophy of the Veda. So I read that and I went, wow, unmanifest, eternal, absolute. That's I understand that is somehow my own experience. So what I wanted to do was to understand that both intellectually, to understand what, when we talk about Veda or reading Vedic literature or hearing Vedic sounds, what does that mean from the intellectual perspective? But I understood that the basis of Veda is the experience of Veda, is the experience of that unmanifest, eternal, absolute. So when we talk about Veda, or talk about kind of the experience of that and yajna, so what are the Vedic sounds? Like, what does it mean to say Vedic sounds? If we say that Veda is that which is knowledge, the knowledge of that eternal, omnipresent, absolute level of life, or said another way, the unified field of all the laws of nature, and of its expressed values of all the diversified fields of life, and we want to understand it as the inner experience of our own life, what happens is, when we listen to talk about the Vedic sounds, when we listen to the Vedic sounds, we're connecting to that murmuring of those fundamental laws of nature, those pulsating laws of nature. I believe that you yourself have heard in your own family even, the experience of listening to Vedic sounds. And what happens is, because that's the home of all the laws of nature, because it's that primordial, fundamental, unified field of life, that's the level of life in which that evolutionary force of nature is most profound. When one connects to that level of life, to that flow of life, one starts to feel inside oneself that same pulsating of that river of flow of life, if you like. And so listening to the Vedic sounds has that value of what you were saying before of anchoring or balancing or restoring that connection in the most natural, simple way. It's not some kind of ooga booga, something outside there or something that's strange, because it's yourself. It's yourself. To talk a little bit about the Vedic pundits, I had spent some time working, and I have my major responsibility these days trying to create these large groups of Vedic pundits who are doing these Vedic recitations for the peace and welfare of the world. That's really how I spend most of my time these days. And we created a facility at the center point of India. It's called the Brahmastan of India. Brahmastan means just that point of that silent point, like the nucleus of a cell, center point of a country or of a house, of Brahmastan. We've created there a large group of Vedic pundits, about 2,000 pundits that we've built for there. And we have a facility for guests to come and visit that campus. And most of the people haven't heard Vedic recitation live. And especially that one recitation you mentioned, that Ati Ruja Bhishek. Ruja Bhishek is that value of enlivening silence for peace for the world. And Ati means it's 1,331 Vedic pundits. And once a week, we have all the guests come over to the main pundit campus there and listen to that. And it's so much fun for me to watch the people's faces afterwards, because it's not an intellectual experience. It's that one goes, it's like, I've always been there. I've always had that. I just feel it's been enlivened. It can be quite, it's powerful and can be quite almost emotional that one feels that uplift of that purposefulness of life. As you said, you've had your own experience. So that's what the Vedic sounds are. They're those sounds which connect one to that that flow, that evolutionary positive flow of life. And the Vedic pundits of India, what we're trying to do, these what we call Maharishi Vedic pundits, because they do the traditional, they're trained as Vedic pundits, and we train these Vedic pundits. But in addition to doing yagyas, these traditional, ancient, most ancient Vedic performances, they also do yoga. By yoga, I mean not the asanas, but of course they do that as well. But it's the meditation, deep meditation practice. So all the Maharishi Vedic pundits do two things every day. They do yoga, that is deep meditation, and then from their own quiet level of experience, they perform these yagyas for the welfare of the world. And there are a number of these, of which Ruja Bhishek is one, and there are many other yagyas that the pundits do. Again, a long answer to a short question, sorry.
No, but I think you were in a position to clearly describe what the process is about and how you have been working with the Vedic Pundits. And we have a very wonderful answer, and we have so much of details to it. And this is something our listeners would also love to, know about in detail. And thank you for the very detailed answer. And never apologize for giving us a detailed and beautiful answer, because that is what we want as well, to know more about it, to know more about what the Vedic sounds do to us. And thank you once again for the beautiful answer. So I would like to ask you about the Maharishi Vedic app as well, which you have also been a part of it, the journey with the Maharishi Vedic app. So what is that, people, like listeners, what do they gain from the app, and what does it do to people?
We created the Maharishi Veda app because not everyone is going to be able to listen to Vedic pundits every day live.
Yes.
I mean, Vedic pundits live is fantastic, but these sounds are these sounds of nature. And there are different qualities to the different sounds. Different sounds have a value of enlivening different qualities. In the Vedic tradition, these laws of nature, the structuring intelligence of nature, have different names. People from the outside may ascribe to them as if they're philosophic concepts or religious concepts. They're not. It's just those fundamental dynamic laws of nature. So, for example, we talked about Ruja Bhishek. It's the value of Ruja, which is the value, it's called, of Shiva. But Shiva, what is that value? It's just the value of silence. In the Vedic language, Shivam Shantam Advaitam. That Shiva, that value is, what is it? It's the value of non-duality. It's bringing things together, peace. So it's a law of nature. It's not a philosophic concept. And so that particular yagya, listening to those recitations, has that quality. Then there's the qualities of people talk about Vishnu. Vishnu means that administration of dynamism.
Mm-hmm.
So all that intelligence, all the fundamental laws of nature, which means that when I drop something, it's going to fall to the ground because there's gravity exerts its force over that. All those laws of nature, I mean, our human bodies composed of these unending, very delicate, refined, different aspects, all of which together don't work at random, but there are laws of nature which structure them. And actually, when we get out of touch with those laws of nature, or when something's introduced which breaks that, then illness comes, dis-ease, the absence of ease. So there are yagyas for that. And of course, and so enlivening success in life, or dynamism in life, or energy. And then one of the beautiful qualities of life is also the quality of Mother Divine, that nourishing, nurturing quality. So there are beautiful recitations for that quality of Mother Divine, that primordial quality, I would say the most powerful quality in earth, most powerful because ultimately Mother is that supreme power of nature that can unify and harmonize and bring infinite nourishment. So there are different Vedic sounds like that have a value that enliven those different aspects. There are hundreds of Vedic recitations on the Maharishi Veda app. If people are interested at all, they can just Google Maharishi Veda app. But the main point that I would draw to is just that everyone has the experience of how sound influences. Listening to Mozart, listening to Beethoven's second movements, there's a certain effect that's created, and that there is a knowledge of life. There's this precious tradition of Veda, which has something which is extremely profound, which has the value of connecting to those qualities which are most nourishing for our evolution. And those are the Vedic sounds. And it's fun for people to try it and listen, see what your own experience is. Is it so or not? And see what they themselves feel.
Yeah, that's something I think would be of interest for people. And like you said, not everyone can witness these Pundits doing the yajna, thousands of them doing the yajna together. And so this is something which is very accessible for people all around the globe. We have so many apps, so many distractions. So having this one particular app which kind of helps us anchor in ourselves and begin our day in a very positive tone, I think it will help a lot of our listeners. And thank you for sharing this with us. I would like to know, what are the challenges that you have faced in organizing this large group of Pundits in a particular space, training them and getting them ready for having Rudrabhisheka on a day-to-day basis? It would have been a quite big of a challenge to do that. How did you accomplish this feat?
It's a very astute question. Accomplishing anything like this, and especially in rural India, where these Pundits are done in these many places, is a huge undertaking. First of all, it's not me. I may get to be the public face and I talk to you, but there's this incredible team of people in India who are leading the program, who are doing the actual training of the Pundits. Of course, no one comes to me and says, how should this recitation be done? There's, these acharyas, these really fantastic Pundits who come from generation and generation and generation, from father to son, from father to son. The hope was, when Maharishi Mahesh Yogi began to re-enliven this Vedic tradition of Vedic Pundits, the hope is that the government would take on the responsibility for doing it. Because once it was clear that there was a lot of scientific research that showed when large groups practice meditation together, not just individuals have individual benefits, but when groups come together and meditate, there's a powerful influence in society. And in particular, when there's groups of these Pundits, as I said before, doing yoga and yajna, they do their deep meditation and then these yagyas. When we've had these large demonstration projects, the results in the world have been really dramatic. Primarily in the late 1980s, we assembled a group of 7,000 Vedic Pundits outside of Delhi, and we did these large yajnas. And if you look at the world at that time, and a lot of studies, very rigorous scientific studies were done, you can see how the Berlin Wall came down. There were 20 or 25 major conflicts which ended just at that time. So we tried to do that and to say, okay, here it is. I mean, we're just one organization. This is something that everyone should want to do. But we've ended up having to figure out how to do it ourselves, to fund it ourselves. We have great benefactors. And slowly, we hope to get the word out. There's a bunch of sites that people can go to about the scientific research about this. One is called the Global Union of Scientists for Peace, GUS, Global Union of Scientists for Peace. And there's a huge amount of information from scientists about how this program works. We've been trying to assemble this group of, it turns out that about square root of 1% of the population, about 9,000 pundits, would be enough, at least on some very good level, to introduce peace for the world. And I think everybody listening today and all of us in our hearts are really concerned about the lack of peace right now. So we're trying everything we can to tell people, to expose people to the scientific research, to talk about it, to kindly, you've invited me today to talk about Vedic sounds. Our motivation in this is really for this, most of all for this, of course, for the individual people. But it doesn't even matter if you meditate. You meditate, enjoy, great. If you don't meditate, enjoy your life anyway. But if we can find a way altogether to create enough of these coherence-creating groups, let's take care of the world. So that's kind of the thrust of what we're trying to do. Huge challenges. I don't know if you spent time in rural India. You know, when you want to build something, you know, when we put the wells, when we want to, you have to cut down a tree, you know, it's just the infrastructure, you know, to get clean water. We have organic farms, you know, it's been a huge thing to be able, because we can't get like high quality food in these different places. So there's not enough time today to tell you all the challenges, only to say that, like anything else, sometimes things are challenging, and if you can overcome them, then there's a great fulfillment in that. Sometimes you don't feel so much the fulfillment, you feel the challenges, but overall, we hope that we can continue and really do something really beneficial.
That's beautiful. And like you mentioned, now more than ever, the world needs a lot more of peace. There are constant conflicts happening across the globe. And even the inner conflicts that is going on within individuals, I think it's on a much larger scale, because we are constantly comparing. There are media platforms which keeps pushing us to comparison with our fellow human beings, try to see where we are in life and are we getting ahead. So we are constantly bugged by these questions on a day-to-day basis. So my next question for you is, for ordinary individuals like me, who are having a regular 9 to 5 kind of a job and trying to be there for the family, and sometimes it gets a bit difficult to anchor in oneself. So, and how do we get to that space where we take some time, a moment for setting ourselves, and what would be some of the practical advice that you could give to people for, you know, to getting to this journey of being in touch with themselves?
I love the very first thing you said about anchoring yourself, because anchoring has that image in my mind of anchor to the ocean, the depth of the ocean. Unless one anchors oneself very deep, then whatever waves come up on the surface are going to bob us this way and that way. So it's extremely important, if one wants to find that inner stability, that unshakable peace, because always life is going to throw challenges at us. Anybody who has children knows that. Anybody who works knows that. It's life. It's going to have ups and downs. One has to be anchored to that ocean. That's why Yogastha Kuru Karmani. The basis of having that success in life, real success in life, is going to be from Yogastha, which means, sta means established in union, established in that ocean. Come to the bottom of that enormous ocean. And then the waves on the top are just a joy. It's just a wave. So how does one do that? Well, you know, in my own experience, this program of transcendental meditation is unique because, unlike other meditations, if, say, it's a concentrative meditation, then one stays on the surface, one tries to focus, or contemplation, one stays examining the waves. For me, in my experience, the unique quality of this transcendental meditation is because one transcends. So, um, if one asks the question, how does one have that connection? One needs a technology, a technique. It's not that the meditation gives us anything. It's that it's like any technology, like it allows you to do what you want to do. So it's a simple, natural, effortless technique which allows people to transcend. That's my advice. Now, people might be listening saying, well, I do my own meditation and I feel that transcendent quality. Great. If you feel that really, if you feel that you have that full value of the transcendent and it's growing every day in your life, basically, you're doing that. But what I find over time, just as I found myself when I tried to meditate, I found that I needed that systematic course, I need that systematic, the simple grace, the simple elegance of how to meditate. And that from this ancient Vedic tradition, the tradition to tie it back into, this is the Vedic tradition of India, this tradition of that highest form of yoga, of really having that experience of samadhi in the language of yoga. So, if you ask me as someone who's been meditating transcendental meditation for 52 years, I can't say anything other than, obviously, I think it's fantastic, or it's a lot of time to spend over 52 years.
Yeah.
So, and, in the life of my family, in the life of all my friends, and so many business people I know and doctors, and I ran a very large investment fund. And I saw so many of the it was a large fund by my standards. It wasn't one of the largest funds in the world, but it was quite large. But when I would meet other very, very large fund managers, and so many of them meditated, and they all said the same thing. They meditated transcendental meditation. They said that they did that because it anchored them. It gave them that stability to be able to proceed in their life in that way. And that's why you have a guy like Ray Dalio, managed the most money in the world, or so many others. Or you see people in film like a David Lynch, or you see so many different artists, or a comedian like a Jerry Seinfeld. Why do all these people? It's because in whatever one wants to pursue, just what you beautifully said it from the start, one needs to be anchored. One needs to connect oneself. Yoga means yog, connect oneself, all this dynamism. Don't lose that. It's fabulous. It's life. But just connect it to that eternal, silent, peaceful source of life. And that is success in life, I think.
How beautiful, how beautiful. And we couldn't have asked for a better person to talk about this experience of meditation playing a crucial role in how it shaped you and how it has also helped you in your career and in your family life. And just about it has touched every single aspect of your life. And this is something I find inspiring. And this is my takeaway for today. And it is to just find that time for myself where I can sit and meditate, to be in touch with myself so that it helps me to lead my life in much better manner. And
Beautiful. Beautiful.
yeah, thank you so much for being a part of the TALRadio interview. And we are so happy to have you over and to talk about the Maharishi Veda app and what you have been doing for so many years. Thank you for this wonderful experience, and we hope to meet you again because there is just so much to talk about regarding this.
Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure. And I'm enjoying also very much how you reflect the qualities that you speak about. It's so nice to see your own joy and your own dynamism and your own kindness. Thank you. It's an honor to connect with you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Harris. And that is all for today's episode. And I thank my listeners for tuning in to this episode. And this is your host, Pavithra Krishnakumar, signing off for today.